Okay, yeah, it should be live now. I was going to do fewer battles, but I decided instead, since I had been working on it a bit, to do the Banjo-Kazooie guide. So yeah, I've been playing these characters, or I guess this character. It's kind of two characters in one, so I don't really know what to say here, but I've been playing as them, I guess that'll work then. I've been playing as them a lot this week. Um, Significantly more than I have my main, actually. I'm not considering maining these characters. I'm going to be sticking to Mega Man, in case you're wondering. But I am most likely going to pick these characters up as a secondary, and so I thought I would give what I thought is a good analysis of their playstyle, like a guide, kind of. So, yeah, that's why I'm calling this the Banjo-Kazooie guide, I guess. But, yeah, I think that this should go over pretty much everything that I've learned on the characters and try to help people that are interested in maining or secondarying these characters to be able to find something useful, I guess, in case you're like struggling to know how to play the character. Because these characters, at least for me, they took me a while to get used to, because I thought their playstyle was one way whenever it actually ended up being a completely separate thing. So I thought they were going to be a much more like aggressive in your face rushdown character whenever at least the way that I've played them that has worked the best for me. I've played them a lot more defensively and tried to keep my distance from my opponent. Whenever I do go in, I mainly just go in for grabs by doing a neutral air into like a grab, like something like that, and then I usually just throw my opponent off stage and then try to edge guard them, which you do have to get close to your opponent to edge guard them, but most of the time on stage I will try to keep my distance. So yeah, I guess let's get started. So I guess some facts about Banjo. Run speed is ranked at number 11. I don't have the specific value pulled up at the moment, but I do know that it is 11th. I looked on Kurogane Hammer, I believe, what's the website's name, and they had the run value. They hadn't put Banjo on the list yet, but I was able to compare it and then see that Banjo is a bit below Ridley and Charizard at number 11 for run speed. Walk speed, though, is below average, fairly slow, at 51st, whereas run speed's pretty fast at 11th. Airspeed is very slow, though. It's ranked 71st. And the weight value is the same as Snake and Rob, which is 106, I believe, so that classifies Banjo-Kazooie as being a heavyweight character. Or not heavyweight, but just a heavy character. So, yeah, for moveset, you've got, or at least the more important moves, you've got neutral air, forward air, back air, up air, occasionally down air, so pretty much all of your aerials are going to be used. Then you've got forward tilt, the occasional down tilt. I rarely use up tilt, so I'm not going to show that, but I instead use up smash most of the time because it does about the same thing, not a bit better. So up smash and down smash are going to be your main smash attacks. And then for your specials, you've got neutral special, down special, up special, and side special. I will be going over ways to use them in the match because those are the main moves that I use, or at least down special is the main move that I use. So yeah, I guess let's go ahead and get started. So for Banjo-Kazooie, as I said earlier, you probably want to maintain distance. You don't really want your opponent to be next to you. The main reason for this is because that Banjo-Kazooie can get juggled very easily. They have a very slow airspeed. A lot of their moves that are in the air, like neutral air, down air, or forward air, and back air, have limited range, or they just don't really cover options that can harm them and then continue to juggle them, things like that. So, like, let's say Falcon up smash me, for example. The only option that I have is, like, neutral air, and that's if they manage to, or, like, if they're charging up smash, then I could land on them with neutral air. But if they just release the up smash, then there's not really anything I can do to combat them other than move away. So you really just want to try to maintain your distance and only approach if you absolutely have to. Now you do have side special as a means to get out of pretty much any scenario due to you becoming invincible and dashing through your opponents. But you only have a limited number of uses on that, so I would not recommend you use slide special, if at all. Like, the main ways that I use slide special are for edge guarding, if I absolutely need to escape, if I'm getting edge guarded, so like, if someone's trying to pressure me off stage, I might use slide special. There are usually ways that you can get out of a scenario where you're getting edge guarded without using slide special, but, in case there is no way and you just have to use slide special, then you can use it then. And then sometimes I will use it as an option to read someone on stage, like if they roll back to stage and maybe I catch them rolling with a slide special, or if they jump, something like that, like a down throw, and then I read their escape and then slide special, or something like that. Those will be the main time that I use slide special on stage. It's just in the reads. Most time it's going to be used off stage. But yeah, for the entirety of your neutral, pretty much, you just want to try to space out your opponent. You can play a bit rushdown. Banjo-Kazooie is not a bad character if you do get up close and personal, but I personally think that their melee options in neutral aren't really too useful, except maybe like jab, forward tilt, down tilt. The good thing about forward tilt is it can be used to keep your opponents away. Like, you don't even have to hit the tip of the beak because it just does the same damage. Or at least it does, like, relatively the same amount of damage throughout if you're just worried about damage. But if you're worried about knockback, then definitely go for the tip. And then for down tilt has a bit of knockback, so it's pretty useful for knocking opponents away but not knocking them high. Whereas with forward tilt, you'll push them up a bit, so they'll go a bit higher and then they can get back to stage by recovering high, whereas if you down tilt, they recover low or mid due to the angle at which the down tilt drops them. So that's a lot better if you're trying to set up for an edge guard and you're trying to poke someone who's shielding a lot. So if they're shielding a lot, then their feet are going to be visible, and then you can try to poke their feet with either down tilt or forward tilt. If you want to try to catch a high to mid recovery, you want to go for forward tilt, and then if you want to catch a low to mid recovery, you want to go for down tilt, because it launches lower. Although most of the time, if your opponent is shielding, I would recommend to go for a grab. You don't have to do the grab setup of neutral air into grab, but that is what I like to do most of the time if I'm next to my opponent, is I'll just go for a neutral air into grab, because that is, like, the safest option. Occasionally, I've had neutral air drop behind Banjo a few times, and if that happens, then most of the time your opponent's going to be thrown off by it more than you are. So you should be able to not have to worry about them landing behind you. Although if they do catch you trying to grab them and they're behind you, then they can hit you with a forward smash, so do watch out for that. Although, another thing about the neutral air into grab is that you might want to go for a dash grab, because neutral air, while it does send close, as you can see there, it can send far away as well. Plus, it can be DI'd away from. If your opponent DIs away, then you want to go for a dash grab, and if they DI in, then you still pretty much want to go for dash grab, because you should just be able to push their model forward as you're running, so then you can just grab them while they're trying to DI into you. If they manage to get behind you, though, through DIing in, I guess, then you don't really have to worry about them, because most of the time they're just going to be kind of stunned by the attack. If they are not stunned, then they will hit you, and then you'll be off stage, so you don't really have to worry about them in neutral anymore. Now you have to worry about them in disadvantage, but I'll get into that in a minute. First, I want to go more into neutral, so yeah, for spacing, which is the way that I play, most time I just pretty much spam this move, your down special. If you can pick up the grenade, then do that, but you don't necessarily have to pick up your grenade. If you're playing against a Ridley, for example, and you feel like you're about to get grabbed, then you might want to throw out a down special, in case they do grab you and start to drag you along, because that will allow you to be able to escape while they take damage and you don't take any damage. I feel like the grenade has this weird property. I haven't really tested this out enough to be able to say if it's like true or false, but the explosion of the grenade will not affect Banjo if his opponent is hit like one frame before him. If they're hit on the same frame, then it will affect. So like, here's the grenade, I guess, so here's the explosion. So as you can see, Falcon was the only person in the range of the explosion, and so he was affected. But if Banjo picks up the grenade and throws it at Falcon right next to him, as you can see, Banjo is unaffected. So if you do that with other types of grenades, then you could get injured by doing that. But with Banjo's down special grenade, you do not get injured. I think that this is mainly because Falcon is getting hit before Banjo by the explosion, so all the explosion damage goes into Falcon rather than going into the opponents around him. Now, if they're hit on the exact same frame, then it will damage both individuals. Although it's kind of hard for me to do due to me playing by myself here. But, so like here, let me just show you, I guess by doing the grenade like that. So as you can see, it could potentially just be because you have to let the grenade detonate, but as you can see there, I let it detonate and it didn't affect Falcon because I was the one holding the grenade. But I've had times where they're hit, like the grenade explosion is in the middle of the throw, it hasn't necessarily hit your opponent yet, so it hits both characters. I've had that happen a lot. So that's why I'd say that you should probably stay away from them, if at all possible. If you actually do this in the air and you down special and you hold on a second. As you can see, like if you down special and then start moving backwards while you're in the air, you can actually drift towards the grenade and be able to grab it a bit easier than if you throw it out on the ground. Then you have to walk and then kind of wait on it and then throw it. Or you could just try to like jump and grab it and then throw it as well. But most of the time I'm just going to walk and then grab it like that. Although, if you want to do it a bit faster or if you want to get the grenade in your hand a bit faster, then try to down special and then move back and grab the grenade while in the air, because you should be able to grab it slightly faster that way. And then just throw it at your opponent. It moves pretty fast if it's thrown, so your opponent will have a bit of time to react, and if they do reflect it, then it's not like it's going to do too much damage to Banjo, but if it hits them or if they shield it, then you can just get out another grenade and throw it again at your opponent until they're at a high enough percent where it knocks them off stage and then you enter advantage. Now, if your opponent is getting a lot closer to you and you're still trying to zone from them, I would recommend just try to go for moves like up smash and up air to try and get them away from you. Up air is a decent combo tool. You can do a falling up air into a rising up air, things like that. So maybe just try to hit them with some sort of attack that moves them away. As you can see, up air also has a really weird property to where if you land first hits, sometimes your opponent gets knocked pretty far away from you in some direction. As far as I know, it's random, but they'll get knocked pretty far away from you occasionally whenever you hit them with the first hit of up air only, so you could just try to hit them with that. If not, then you could, like if you go for the double hit of up air, you might want to go for like up air, or up air, up tilt, up air, up smash as well. So that was up air, up tilt, and then you can see there, launch behind Banjo. Most of the time it does launch behind, but I have seen it launch in front once. You can see you can try to go for some like up air into up smash and then get out some damage that way. Up smash does have hitboxes on the side, unlike Hero, so even if your opponent like rolls into you, then you can still catch them with an up smash. Or if they're like trying to hit you with a move, you might be able to beat them with an up smash. Though if they're charging at you with a move, I'd recommend something like forward tilt, because that will allow you to get some distance, or down tilt, something with long range. Don't really use forward smash. Forward smash is pretty laggy, and it doesn't really cover too much distance. Like, if your opponent's off stage and they're right in front of you and you want to go for a forward smash, then go for that, because they'll most likely have to jump out of the way or something, and you will avoid being punished for that. But don't really use it in neutral too much. Kind of the same thing for all smash attacks, but with Banjo's forward smash, that's just going to get you into a position where you'll most likely get juggled off stage, or just get juggled on stage and carried to the top blast zone, something along those lines. So you really just want to avoid using forward smash at all. But if you do use it, then use it to edgeguard opponents, because it does have some off stage range. For a smash attack that's going to be right next to you, I would recommend down smash, because down smash is pretty fast. It's not that powerful or anything like that, but it does its job of getting you far away from your opponent, so that way you can go back to chugging grenades at them. Now, for rush young characters and swords, as well as some projectile characters, I would recommend going for the grenades and throwing them. Although for other ones, you might want to use the like Kazooie launcher here, where you just launch eggs out of Kazooie. A downside of this is that your movement speed is reduced a lot on the ground, so you have to jump around a lot. And the only thing you can do is launch eggs, unless you want to like try to air dodge or something like that. So the good thing about it is that the projectile, that first projectile there, is pretty good for catching opponents that don't know about it. And then you've also got this first hit. The first hit will combo into a jump variant of the second hit, so if you neutral B and then you hold, all I'm doing is hitting B and then holding X and B at the same time for that. And if you're right next to your opponent, it's kind of similar to the way that Mega Man's Mega Buster works on all moves but forward tilt, where it has a strong hit that's directly at the beak of Banjo. So of Kazooie, sorry, not Banjo. So if you want to try to get in a hit that way, just to try and combo them away from you, then you can do something like that, and then maybe put it up and then do an up smash or something like that to maybe start a juggle that way. This works pretty well against sword characters because the projectile is much faster on like release and stuff than the grenades. Like you can't really catch this as well. Like a lot of sword characters use a bunch of aerials, so they'll most likely catch your grenades if you throw them. So if you throw something like this, and they can't necessarily catch them. And if they get too close, then obviously put up Kazooie and then try to hit them with like an up smash or something to get them away from you. But this option at least allows you to cover people that are jumping a lot, as well as people that are trying to approach you on the ground somewhat. Although if they start getting like about halfway between the current distance that they started and then, or the distance that they started and their current distance, if they get about to that halfway point, then you might want to, or I guess I said that wrong. So if they get to, so let's say Falcon's over here and I'm over here, if they get about halfway, then I would start to put up a Kazooie. Maybe even if they like took a step and got a bit too close. Like, if you put up Kazooie too early, then it's not going to be the end of the world. Whereas if you put up Kazooie too late, then you're going to run into issues. So, that's why I would say that it's much more important to focus on getting Kazooie out of your hands as quickly as possible, rather than trying to keep Kazooie in your hands for as long as possible. Which is a mistake that I've made a lot. And it's going to take a bit of practice to get used to. Like, I'm still not too used to the character. Playing that way, because most of the time I play using the grenades, because I don't really play against sword characters that much. But if I do play against more swords, then I'm going to definitely be working on things like that. And then also the grenade, or not the grenade, but the first neutral B hit here can be used in jab blocks. Although didn't really do a proper one there. But as you can see, like, you could hit someone with the egg and then try to hit them with like a down smash or an up smash or something like that. Now, I tried to go for a down air there. I haven't really seen anything too special with the down air, but it doesn't seem too strong with spikes, so I wouldn't necessarily use it off stage too much. But I did say that it was one of your more important moves. I think that's mainly because on stage, you can use it to get to the ground pretty quickly. It doesn't really have too much in lag. If your opponent reads that you're going to do this, then they'll punish you. But if they, like, if they think that they're, or if they don't do an option that commits to that, I guess. So, if they're unsure if you're going to down air or not, and then you end up down airing, then you should be fine. But if they know that you're going to down air, then that's where the issue is going to come about. So don't use this too often, but use it as like a mix-up option, I guess, rather than as something all the time. Because if you just do the same option over and over again, then that's how your opponent's going to read you. So just use it a bit, but if you do use it, then know that there are consequences to if they do actually read the mix-up. So it's much safer to go for something like fast fall, but if you want to try to do some damage on your way down, then go for a down air, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then back air is used for spacing. I kind of forgot to mention that one. But if you're trying to play a bit aggressively with Banjo-Kazooie in much more of a rushdown style, then backer is going to be something that's pretty important because it's just really easy to use a lot. And you can cover people in the air or on the ground with the move because it is an aerial, so it's just pretty useful for like catching people jumping and things like that and just pushing them away from you because it does have a bit of range and it's not something that's laggy as forward air. Forward air is mainly used for edge guarding. Not because it spikes, but because the knockback of the move is strong enough to be able to kill opponents pretty easily. Although you have other edge guard options as well, such as like your up special, which does have a hitbox, and your side special, which I'm going to get into those moves now. So, up special, you can charge it a bit, although you are open to attack while you're charging it, and that will allow you to get a bit more height. And then, if you don't charge it, you'll get less height, but you still have your jumps and things like that if you haven't used them already. So, you can use this to mix up your recovery a lot. You have a ton of ways to recover, although I messed up there. You could even make it underneath the stage if you do the right order, which is that. And then there's another order if you air dodge. Well, you have to do like... Yeah, I messed it up there. Pretty much if you have a golden feather and you accidentally use it on, or like underneath the stage, I've done that a few times when I'm trying to get to the ledge, I'll accidentally go underneath the stage. Know that you do have options to make it back to stage, because that does allow you to travel about halfway between the ledges, so you're pretty much directly in the middle of the stage, and then you can just jump and up specials get all the way back to the ledge. Although, most of the time I would not recommend to use that because that does use one of your feathers and it's also kind of slow, so your opponent will be able to see you going underneath the stage and just go to the other side of the stage. So if you're using that to escape them like pressuring you at the ledge, then they can just run all the way to the other side of the ledge and pressure you. So it's not really too useful an option, but I have had a few times where I've got stuck underneath the stage and used that to avoid almost dying. Although it does use a feather, so I wouldn't recommend using it. But now into the actual feather. So there are pretty much three main uses for the feathers. You can use it to get back to stage, which is probably the most common use. It just allows you to get back to stage for free. Like, unless your opponent has a tether grab, then you should be able to just get back to stage without having to worry about being hit. Or if they can catch you off stage while you're charging it, because it does have a bit of startup, so if you are hit during that startup, then you'll take damage, but you won't lose a feather or anything. You don't lose a feather until the hitbox is active, which is something that I really like, because that allows you to not have to worry about losing feathers due to the move being hit by something and interrupted, which is something that happens for, like, Little Mac's KO Punch, I believe, is one of the moves where you can like hit them during the animation that it will interrupt it. And there are a few other moves like that, like charge shots, where they have a bit of startup, and if you're hit at all during that startup, then you lose what you've charged. But with Banjo-Kazooie, that's not something you really have to worry about. Although if you do use it to get back to stage a lot, then your opponent may start noticing you doing it, and you'll also be low on feathers, so use it pretty sparingly to get back to stage. You can stall underneath the stage for a while using your jumps. You also have an air dodge to get back to stage as well, so you don't always have to use your feather, but just know that that is an option that you have. Like, I use it pretty much as a last resort, so if my opponent is pressuring me to the point where I'm like all the way out here, then I'll use it to get back to stage because I pretty much have no other option outside of like air dodging, and then if they catch my air dodge, then I'm dead. So if I'm far away, then I should have enough time to be able to activate the slide special and still have the invincibility and get back to stage. But if you use it too much, then your opponent can read it, and there are punish options like tethers. You can shield it into a grab, because if it gets shielded, it has a lot of in-lag. If you counter it towards the ending of its active frames, then you will be able to be hit, although if you counter it while it's still active, then nothing happens. Like, I tested that with Joker. Like, me and my friend were playing, and he plays Joker, and I was just playing Banjo on day one, and I just like side specialed him. He tried to counter it, and I just ended up going directly through him. So you will be invincible if you hit your opponent during the like animation of you still dashing. But if you hit them like on the last frame of that animation and you start the skid animation of the ending, you can see there he kind of like skids at the end. If you start that, then that means that you are open to attack, and then you have all the way until like I was holding shield that entire time, and as you can see, you have a lot of in lag on the move. So even if it doesn't get shielded, you can still be punished. So that's why I say that you should use it sparingly if you're trying to use it to recover. It also has an issue to where sometimes you'll bounce off the stage. As you can see there, I grabbed the ledge twice, and then ended up going underneath the stage. But I've run into the stage a few times like that, get that bounce. I've had that happen to me while I hit the ledge, and that just means that you're going to be hit by a forward smash if someone knows that you're about to run into the stage and crash into it. Although, if you do grab the ledge, then you should be fine. But you can also recover high with it, if you're getting pressured. But now into the, I guess, aggressive option, the slide special. I mainly just use it for reads if my opponent's going to recover high, mid, or low. I'll try to hit them with a slide special. Most of the time it's going to be high or mid rather than low. If it's the end of the game, I'll go for a low slide special. The main problem with a low slide special is that you won't make it back to stage. If you go for a high slide special, then you will be able to make it back to stage if you have another golden feather. And if you go for a mid slide special, same thing. You don't even need the second golden feather. But, you can see there, like, the way that I used my jumps made it where I had to golden feather on that high recovery. But if you just use your first jump and then golden feather, you should still have both of your other jumps. And you don't even need to air dodge. Or, I guess you do. But, could have just been me spacing it wrong. If you do use both of your jumps, though, you will have to golden feather or air dodge to get backstage. Maybe a mixture of both. But that just shows you that Banjo has a lot of options for recovering. Like, you can use one jump, you can use both your jumps, you can use one jump and an air dodge, you can use both your jumps and an air dodge, you can just air dodge, you can slide special, you can up special into a slide special. You've got all these different options to mix up your recovery, so make sure that you do mix up your recovery. If you choose the same option every time, then you're going to get red. I think I kind of mentioned that, but even like for edge guarding, if you use the same edge guarding option every time, so if you always try to cover mid, then your opponent could call you out on that. So just make sure that you're not playing too predictably, basically, with your edge guarding. Although the safest option for the golden feathers is going to be trying to get reads. So a read is basically whenever you predict what your opponent's going to do. Although messed up on it there. As you can see, I'm doing that a bit too early. And then that time, a bit late. So, as you can see, I waited for my opponent to get out of the ground there, then double jump into a slide special and managed to connect. Although that time it didn't, because I didn't delay it enough. But I waited for my opponent to get out of the ground, and then as soon as they did, I was already in the active frames of the slide special, so they couldn't really do much other than get hit unless they countered or air dodge. Which most of the time your opponent's going to go for an aggressive option out of that if you're trying to catch them in the air, because they will have priority unless you use a move that makes you invincible, like an air dodge or a slide special from Banjo-Kazooie. So that can lead into advantage, which you can then golden feather people off stage, be able to pick up kills, or just edge guard them through normal means, like with down special or neutral special, aerials, things like that. That every character has, pretty much. Like, if you have projectiles, then you can use them to edge guard, and then if you have aerials, most of the time, that's what you're going to use to edge guard. With every character but, like, Little Mac. Although Little Mac can edge guard with aerials at the end of the game. Most of his aerials are a bit too dangerous, or at least I find them a bit too dangerous to be used off stage, in the middle of the game, and still maintaining a stock, because if your opponent catches you, then you're dead. Like, you might be able to kill them, but that could leave you in a worse spot if you're on the same stock rather than a stock ahead. Because if you're on a stock ahead, that can allow you to go for something risky. But back to Banjo. You mainly just want to use Golden Feathers for reads for the down throw, because your opponent will mash out of down throw pretty much every time. Like, if they don't mash at all, then you can also read that just by side specialing without jumping. But if you do think that they're going to mash, and you can jump and then side special them. Although the other option is rolls and spot dodges. So if your opponent throws out a defensive option, as soon as you see them, like, they'll kind of turn light grayish while they have invincibility. As you can see there, like, Banjo kind of turns light gray. So that's when you want to hit slide B, and then as soon as you've hit slide B, if you're right next to them, then most of the time they are going to be hit. Certain characters have slow rolls like Game & Watch, so you should be able to hit them pretty much if you see them rolling in slide special at any point in time during the roll. You should be able to hit them. Although certain characters roll a bit faster than others and might be able to shield. But by then you're towards the end of the slide special animation, so you can't be punished too severely unless your opponent has a really fast smash attack, which not a lot of characters do. So yeah, like, I guess here's an example of me predicting that he's going to recover high, and then gonna neutral get up, and then recover mid. Now he is a CPU, that Falcon, so I kind of knew what he was going to do because CPUs do that, but that's just an example of how a game can go. I had a game go like that earlier today in Viewer Battles with an actual person instead of a CPU. So yeah, I know that it does work that way, but it is kind of risky to go for still, because you can be punished because you're using slide special. It's pretty much like using a smash attack, except it moves you forward, and your forward smash actually does less damage than your slide special, so it's a bit stronger than most forward smashes. Or I guess your forward smash, but there are a few other forward smashes that it's stronger than. Except the difference between this and a standard forward smash is that it moves you forward and can also be used in the air. So it's kind of got two advantages over it. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for the specials there. Got up special, side special, down special, and then neutral special. I covered all of them, covered all of your aerials and tilts. So usually this is where I just battled the CPU opponents in most of my other guides. But instead, I would recommend you check out my latest viewer battles. It's called, like, Cursed Sands, I think. And in that game, or in that video, I guess, I do use Banjo towards the middle. And you can see how I play Banjo there against an actual opponent rather than a CPU, because I know people kind of criticize practicing against CPUs because they have patterns and all this stuff. So instead, I'm just going to do what I do at the end of the videos, which is get in taunts for the thumbnail of this video. But yeah, I do stream live on Twitch, is what I'm currently doing. I like to do my guides live, so if you do want to see me play Banjo in the future, then you can see me there. I also do have YouTube in case you're watching that on there, or if you're watching this on Twitch and you don't know that I do have a YouTube where I post videos pretty much every day. Like, sometimes I miss out on one day, but it's going to be mostly every day. And it's just going to be the streams that I do on Twitch get moved over to YouTube. There are certain videos that I only post on YouTube, though, and then most of the time they're, like, deleted off Twitch or something like that. But there are, like, a few videos where I've taken stuff off of Twitch. Like, I've done a video that doesn't involve Twitch and then posted it to YouTube. So, certain exclusive things on there, but most of the time, if you do want to play games of Smash or anything, I do viewer battles pretty much all day, every Friday and Saturday, although as of late I haven't been able to do many viewer battles on Fridays, because I usually get home on Saturday, so I haven't really had much time. But earlier today I did do viewer battles, and I think tonight I'm going to be ending the stream here, though. And yeah, I guess hope to see everyone in the next stream.